Crash and burn.
Hey everybody! So tonight I'm looking to discuss the 2015 film The Boy. Not that other bullshit that came out a while later. That Boy. That Boy was garbage. This boy isn't. This boy is scary. This boy is a budding serial killer / sociopath. The other boy was dumb. That other movie, I couldn't even get through it. Fuck, it felt like dead silence, you know? Anyways, yeah, this movie's nuts. It's a slow burn of a movie. Okay, so this is a slow burning movie about a budding sociopath. Essentially, this movie is just about Ted, that's the boy's name, and his father John. His father John runs and / potentially owns the motel that they live at. And Ted just spends his days. I think it's got to be, no wait, it can't be summer break because at the end all the people show up for prom. So I just don't think Ted goes to school much. Or maybe he's not old enough to go to school yet, but he strikes me as being older than 4 or 5. So I'm not entirely sure why he's not in school. If he is older than 4 or 5, he has to be. So I don't know why he's not in school. But anyways, yeah, he just walks around collecting roadkill that his father John will pay him for. And he does sort of have like a creepy obsession with finding roadkill to the point where he starts to leave food on the kind of deserted road that is attached to the almost deserted motel that his father runs. So the kid has a lot of time on his hands because he has no friends. There's no family. He has a mom, as we find out at the end of the movie, in Florida. But she's not in the picture, at least not in this movie. And yeah, so he spends most of his time collecting roadkill and trying to set up traps, like food traps on the road, so that other animals will be killed. And this works at one point. He attracts a deer, and the deer is killed, and then his dad decides to hack the deer up, and he gives Ted the antlers to play with. And Ted fashions the antlers into this sort of like spooky little, hey, I'm one of the fucking Tuttles out of the first season of True Detective lunatic hat things that only crazy people wear antlers. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what would possess a person to do that. Like, if you wear antlers, you're in a cult. And if you're not in a cult, you're wearing the antlers because you want to start a cult. Or it's Halloween, you're dressing up like somebody in a cult. Antlers and cults go together really well. If I ever start a cult, antlers will be involved. In my cult, there will be no creepy sex shit because that's disgusting. But it will end in a mass suicide. My cult will definitely end in a mass suicide, but there will not be any creepy rapey shit because that's not cool. But if you join my cult, you're dying. That's the way it goes. What type of a cult? I don't want to be a part of a cult that doesn't end in a mass suicide. I mean, think about that. What kind of a cult do you have? It's not a death cult, it's a life cult. And if it's a life cult, you can't really call it a cult. This has nothing to do with the movie. My apologies. But yeah, so the kid just wanders around, and occasionally guests will show up, and he'll become a little too attached to them. And this one family shows up, and he starts to hang out with the son. But he also sneaks into the room to watch them sleep. And he'll steal shit from people, too, so that they have to come back to the motel, so it's like he can keep them there because he wants them there, because despite the fact that he doesn't really have emotions and he doesn't know how to create meaningful connections with other people, he still sort of longs for these things. And yeah, like I said, this movie is incredibly quiet. It's sort of got like In a Violent Nature vibe to it, for anybody that's seen In a Violent Nature, or In a Violent Nature more accurately has this kind of vibe. And that's it. And then he comes across this dude named William. The William dude's kind of sketchy, and Ted goes through all this shit. He finds a box full of ashes, and then William freaks out when he finds out that Ted stole all his shit. He goes after him because that was all of his wife's possessions. His wife has died. She apparently died in a fire, and William is the main suspect, even though I don't think William did it. I think William was too broken up about her dying for him to be guilty of it. But nevertheless, Ted ends up trapping him in this sort of tarp trap he sets up at the end, this junkyard that he hangs out in. Ted runs across the tarp, doesn't realize there's no ground underneath it. He falls in and he injures himself to the point where he can't get out of the hole, and Ted just leaves him there. And then Ted goes home as the prom kids are all shown up, and the one kid was really rude to his dad too. So in a way, I don't mind Ted killing them all. And he sets the entire motel on fire, killing his father in the process. And if I'm not mistaken too, it actually seems like the filmmakers legitimately burned a location to the ground. Because you see it more or less from start to finish. And the movie concludes with the police asking him, like, what happened? I'm really sorry you lost your father in the fire and everything. And he's like, and the whole time, like, the kid is staring off like this, like I am now. And everybody's talking to him. They're standing like up here looking at him in this direction. And the whole time he's answering their questions like this. He's like, didn't William's wife die in a fire? And the cop's like, that's true, she did. And the whole time, like I said, the kid's staring off like he's not really there. And the cop and the paramedic are talking to him like this, and he's not making eye contact with them. And nobody thinks that's weird because the kid just lost his dad in a fire that they believe was started by this other dude who killed his wife in a fire, even though that couldn't have been further from the truth. This is all Ted's doing. And then the cop walks off, like they got to put out an APB on William. And so the cop leaves, and the paramedic says, like, do you have any other family? And Ted says, I've got a mom in Florida. And the movie just cuts and goes to the end credits. And they're going to ship the little psycho off to Florida where he can wipe out his mom too. This movie was absolutely amazing, but don't expect any real fireworks from this movie. Even the burning down of the motel at the end is kind of quiet and peaceful. So don't expect a lot of excitement from this movie. Just like expect this movie to be sort of evil. And this kid, he's just ruthless. And I love these movies where they show like a budding serial killer or like a sociopath, spree killer, whatever he's going to grow up to be. He's definitely a sociopath, but I love it when it shows this like the behind the scenes of a serial killer, so to speak. Like it shows like such and such when they were growing up. And this movie did a really good job of showing like just how accurate it would be. The kid isn't crazy to the point where he's killing something 24/7. No, most of the time he's just wandering through the rooms at the motel, kind of cleaning them up like his dad wants him to, and he's out there collecting roadkill. And that's kind of how it would go. The kid's too little to be killing as effectively and as much as he might want to. So you need to give it time. He needs to grow into that. And that's what I liked about this, was it was just sort of like, it felt very restrained, And it felt like they were holding back the best for the future that we will never see. But yeah, I think actually that's where I'm going to leave it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for just about 7.5 minutes while I discuss the 2015 film, The Boy. Not the one that sucks, the one that came after it. This is the real one with the kid with the antlers. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, never forget that the world is a way better place because you are in it. And one day I'm going to start a cult, and it's going to be really fun. Until the end. Yeah. Have a good night.